my soul. Whoa, let the river of God be the spring of my soul.
Now, fast forward to where you are.
Sure.
You know, you've come out with you know, you've got such a great catalog of music. But what's your latest? What does your latest album sound like?
Well, we did. So I did a Christmas record, and the way that happened was, we did a record called Mercury and Lightning. We put it out in
Mercury and Lightning.
17? Was it 2017? Or maybe it was the end of 16. No, it was 2017.
Okay.
We put some singles out in 16.
Okay.
It's weird now. You put singles out so far out. I don't know.
Right.
Record came out in 17. We toured.
It's because we want people to buy our music, so we put singles.
I know. You have to leave people breadcrumbs these days because no one will sit down and listen to the whole record anymore. You got to lead them along. Yeah. But
True.
Put that record out, and I love the way that record turned out. I spent a year or so in Portland, Oregon, working on that record. I was really proud of the record. I think the songs themselves were challenging. We knew that going in. Initially I was afraid. I don't know if my audience is really gonna like this, you know. And I was sort of in a bit of a faith crisis. My buddy, who also is named Gabe.
Oh, cool.
Gabriel. He's like, you know, I was like, Gabriel, I think we need to take a pause on this record because I got to figure out what I feel about some things, you know, because people don't want to hear. I was like, I don't know what to give people. You know, like, I know people want to hear certain songs and I want to give it to them, but they gotta come honest, you know.
Right,
and he's like, well, you know what might be more interesting? I was like, what? He's like, instead of like working through stuff and then making this record after you figured out, why do you make a record about not knowing what you think, not knowing what you feel about? You know, maybe just write a record about where you're at now. And I was like, oh, yeah. So that was Mercury and Lightning. So I wrote it, and I felt like the songs were a bit challenging for people subject-wise, and so we released, and I think it did pretty well actually, but I did feel like some people may have been a little bit left behind, and they may not have caught some of the nuance. So I decided to do a sessions version, which I'd done before. I'd done a record called Borderland Sessions, which was like acoustic version of the Borderland song. So we did like orchestral string and type arrangements where people could hear the lyrics, could follow along, you know. And I thought that was a lot of fun. We had so much fun making that we didn't want to stop working. So we decided to do a Christmas record. We put that out this year.
Okay.
So that's sort of my last group of projects. I feel like I'd put projects out in groups.
Right.
My last group of projects. Currently, I've got a bunch of new songs. I'm trying to figure out what record I want to make, to be honest. I really don't know. I've got a concept that is super weird. It doesn't sound weird, but it gets weird. The concept is, I've got all these what ifs about God, right?
Okay.
It's like, I'm not saying I know this about God or I know that, but there's definitely some what ifs. It's like, have you considered type of stuff, you know? I've got a song about, I wonder if, you know, I think most people, if they were honest, really thought about it, like, we covet God's power, meaning like control and security, and
right.
You know, everyone says, yeah, he's as rich as God, right? You know, he's rich as God. But I wonder if we would covet God's power if also we knew that God had to feel the pain of every individual that ever felt pain. You know,
wow.
So maybe it's a two-edged sword. I know, super weird, but that's kind of stuff is so interesting to me.
Would you want to be God?
Say what?
So the question is, would you want to be God with all of his?
Yeah, would you want to?
The things he has to do.
Yeah. So maybe God is not only the most powerful, but maybe God also, you know, and to me that answers some questions. It doesn't answer these questions. There are certain questions that I don't know how to answer. You know, say, why does God allow terrible things to happen in the world? And it's like, I don't know why, but it makes me feel better if I feel like everything that ever happens to a person also happens to God himself. You know?
Right.
What if every time a child is abused, every time there's a war, like, God is not just standing watching. He's actually experiencing, which would make sense. I mean, if you want to dig theologically, Christ says, you know, "What you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me." I mean, so there's a little bit of a platform for an argument, but more than that, it's just really interesting to consider. So I got a whole weird record of stuff like that but then at the same time, I'm like, I'm almost 40, which is great. I have no problem with it. I've never made a record. I also kind of want to make a big record. I've never tried to make a big record. By that, I mean like a record that like appeals on a large scale, but also has something in it, or there's still an artistic part of it that I can like get behind. You know, like I almost feel like the irony of making a pop record for me was kind of exciting. Because I've never tried to do that before.
Yeah.
It would almost be like a challenge, like making it all of us. I've done some singer-songwriter stuff and written some. It'd just be a really fun challenge to see, like, can I make a pop record? That would be fun and almost ironic and kind of artistic in and of itself, that it'd be so different than what I normally do. So I'm considering that kind of idea. You know, I got to learn how to write choruses, though, man. I'm terrible at choruses. You can write me some choruses.
Dude, do you find when you're working on albums, do you find that your albums get influenced by the producer you choose?
Oh, they're influenced by everything.
Okay.
I mean, an album is influenced by the city you're in. You know? I mean, for real. And maybe not directly like it's going to take on a whole new life, but, you know, like you're constantly picking things up. I mean, like, and you really are like, you know, the thoughts you have while you're writing influence what you're writing, right? And those thoughts are influenced by your environment.
Right.
You know? And so, like, I've got friends, you know, I got a friend who moved to New York recently, and he lived there for a little while, and he was just telling me how he's like, he's a creative director, and so his job is to like come up with ideas, you know, and he and I always talk about how do we not run out of ideas. And he was just telling me every day on his walk to work, he's like, I'm having thoughts I've never had, man. I'm getting ideas. And he's like, I don't really know where they're coming from, but it's because you've placed yourself in a new environment, you know, and you've got a lot of ideas coming at you from a lot of different areas, you know. And so, like, I think environment doesn't mean you can't make really good music in a really boring place too. I've done that too.
Right.
But I am saying, like,
in other words, a typical studio, a really boring place.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, that's funny, dude. I mean, I lived in Portland for 4 years, so I know, like, you living in Portland for a year, I can imagine kind of what you were absorbing and the environment and the atmosphere. Did you ride bikes every day or what? What did you?
It was mostly cold when I was there. Like, I was in and out. So I still lived in Charlotte, but I would commute back and forth.
Okay.
And then we did a tour in between that time too, you know. So I was gone a lot, but it's mostly cold. You know, I did. I'm not much of a runner, but I did run more. I wanted to get out more.
Right.
The cold air was nice. And I actually was in Vancouver, which is, you know, just over the river. And I love Vancouver.
Yeah.
I like it because, and Portland is great. I mean, we go into Portland a lot, but it got to the point where I was like, the neighborhood is so fun in Vancouver. I got my one little coffee shop.
Yeah.
My apartment's upstairs. Literally, my block was my apartment, right? The studio was downstairs.
Nice.
The coffee shop was literally beneath my apartment. The cool bar was right next to that. There's a dive bar where someone got stabbed the other night. I told the guys not to go hang out there, but, you know, they do what they're going to do. And, you know, and there's like sushi down the street.
Yeah.
Thai place. It's like, I was like, I don't really need to leave the block. I don't need to leave the neighborhood. And so I would spend most of the time there. There's a movie theater. Remember, we got snowed in, like really bad snowed in. And we didn't skip a beat because, like, I don't have to go anywhere. Like, I'm going to make some music, and then I'm going to go drink some coffee, and then we're going to go watch a movie. And then I'm going to write some tonight, and then I'm going to get up tomorrow and make more music. It was so much fun, you know?
That's so cool, man. Well, okay, so I do have general questions for you. Now, and this is kind of steering the conversation towards worship and kind of the theme of worship. You know, you mentioned that you started songwriting at this college. I think you mentioned that it was a worship venue sort of gig, right?
Yeah.
So the idea would be, how do you consider yourself as an artist? Like, obviously, I mean, you write songs that are the spectrum of your songs is so wide, but
Sure.
how do you approach worship music? Do you even listen to worship music?
I do some. I do. I think I don't as much these days as I used to, but I've had a hard time listening to music lately. I think, I mean, you make a lot of music, like, so I feel like when I show up in the morning, like my friends who do other things listen to music all day while they do it,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't, because I'm like writing a song, so I can't listen to music while I write the song, or I'll write that song.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have my little seasons where I dig in. I think I really connect to the Lord through instrumental music. Probably these days it's, and
what kind of instrumental music? What would?
Well, it could be anything. Like, what's my son? Sorry, my son is really into John Williams, like for movies,
Yes.
Some, and then gosh, man, I wish I had something good for you off the top of my head. I'll try and remember, but as far as how I consider myself as an artist, I think philosophically I consider myself a worship leader. As far as the philosophy of what I'm doing,
Right.
Maybe technically or culturally, I'm not entirely a worship leader as far as the sort of the expectation of the current expression. But I do write some of those songs too. I think the word worship, at least in the English, comes from the words worth and ship. Like the word ship, if you're stewardship, internship, it's the vehicle within which you do or carry something. So worship is the vehicle within which you carry worth or value.
Yes.
And so at least under sort of the English word definition, like the idea of worship is that you are assigning or establishing value, right? And that's what the song does. The song establishes value because you sing about something, you're like, have you considered, if you're Drake, it's like God's plan. Have you considered, or if, I don't know, Cardi B or whatever, have you considered my car, or have you considered my shoes? I want to show you there's value. Yeah. And I mean a lot of value in my shoes.
Yes.
Value in my dance, right? I don't dance anymore. I make money.
Right.
You know what I mean? So no matter what genre you're talking about, as music is essentially, when it's good, is worship music in the sense that like you are saying, have you considered the value in this? Because like when you're in a room and you're talking, if you take this to like really, I won't say fundamental, but sort of animal, anthropological, I don't know, sociological level. Take it to a sociological level. When I'm in a room, you're out in a restaurant, right? And someone starts singing. Usually it's like happy birthday or something.
Yeah.
You can't sing happy birthday, you're going to get sued. But it's like, happy birthday. We were at this Italian restaurant the other day. Someone started singing happy birthday, that just whole thing. And of course, the whole place turns around, right? And they know they're singing happy birthday. Like, who cares? But they turn around because speech has been elevated. We use these little tones in our talking, but when the tones peak, and you create intervals, all of a sudden people are like,
their ears pop. They're just.
They're like, oh, something
is going on. Yeah.
That I might need to consider.
Yeah.
Is happening. So that's music. It's always been like that. Music and the expansion of the tone in your voice, even with children, like if I'm with my kids, like, all right now, it's time to use the bathroom. Let's use the bathroom. You inflect. And so the song does that. Like, it's something that'd be really interesting to study, but the song does that. The song sort of naturally says, look, there's something here that you need to consider. And, so that's what worship music is. And when you have you know, what am I trying to say here? When you have a faith, you have something you care about deeply.
Yeah.
Then you say, hey, have you considered, right?
Right.
You know, like you want to know like who you are and where you came from and what you're supposed to do here.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe you're unhappy, maybe you're a happy person, but maybe you're unhappy, and maybe it's because you have not given yourself up to you know what I'm saying? All of a sudden you're like singing about what you value, you know, which to me is the language of gosh, what am I trying to say here, man? I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm getting at something.
And here's the thing. You tell me if you agree with this. I typically divide the kind of classic division of music and art between sacred and secular.
Yeah.
And so I would look at, you know, Wordsworth's Prelude as poetry that says, have you considered nature? Have you considered this river?
Yeah.
Have you considered this mountain?
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily sacred. It's not necessarily things pertaining to the faith of Christ.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. It's still God made, and there's nothing profane about it. But it is of the world. It is secular in that regard. It's of the natural world. So I would just make that. I think like, and this is where I would come maybe more from a medieval perspective on it.
Yeah.
That there's this distinction and separation between the sacred and the secular. So that you take a guy like you know, Mozart or Bach or Beethoven. They wrote secular songs.
Yeah.
But they also wrote sacred songs.
Totally.
And so
I totally understand that. I also have a lot of fun trying to blur that line though. But I do it not to like
naughty.
I know. I do it not because I like the secular music better or whatever, you know. I think I do it more because I love the idea of Christ being a part of my everyday life, you know. Yeah. And I love sort of the like idea of the sanctification of the common life, you know, of common life. And so I'm actually not disagreeing with you in that perspective. It's just so much fun to blur those lines, especially to say like, oh man, like I want to have a sacred moment, you know, on the corner of like Trade and Tryon, you know, like I want to see the world with sacred eyes, you know.
Yeah.
I want to see the redemption of all things, you know, if I can, you know.
I agree with you, and I think that's awesome. The question would be, would you treat your wife in a way that would be, would date night for you be something like every other night, or would it be a special night? Would it be a sacred night that you take you make the accoutrements of the night and the paraphernalia of the night specific to her, and making it, you know, like. So for with sacred music, I think of like, you know, like even just sacred art. Like if you think about Gothic architecture, it's an architecture that was built for Christ. It's not to be duplicated.
Sure.
You know, at the you know, the normal business section of town. It's something that's specific, that the church specifically says this is for the Lord. This is for the purpose. So I wonder if, and I agree with you, blurring the lines. Like I think you should be naturally romantic with your wife.
Yeah.
At day in, day out.
Sure.
But should there also be that night or that moment where there's something unique and
totally.
You know, sentimental.
No, I think that's an amazing point. I love that point. Totally.
So, okay, so would you consider like giving advice to a young artist? Would you
Sure.
What would you say to a young either, you know, worship artist or somebody who looks at you, perhaps,
Sure.
and they look at you and they say, "I want to be like him. I want to apprentice under this master. And I want to be trained." What would be the top three things you'd say to a guy who really admires your craft?
Well, I mean, there's certain things that I think work on any level. Like, number one, what you do on a day usually doesn't matter as much as what happens every day, right? So what you do on one day, doesn't usually matter as much as what you do every day, right?
Okay.
So what I'm saying is a lot of artists are looking for like a moment to be discovered or something,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are waiting for an opportunity. I mean, it could be anything. It could be with a relationship. It could be with looking for a job, But I guess it's like important to take responsibility for your future on a daily basis, And so like my life is like there are these moments when I write these songs I really love, I really believe in, but those are like little dots in the middle of like, this long string of lines of like days where I got up and I tried to write and I didn't like what I wrote, But it's sort of like, I think it's gosh, what's his name? Picasso says that I'm losing my mind here. Inspiration.
Okay, well, I was gonna say Picasso could easily say I'm losing my mind here.
I know, totally. Picasso says, I think it's Picasso who said that inspiration exists, but it has to find you working.
Oh, that's good.
It has to find you working,
Yeah, that's good.
So, and that works on a number of levels. Like if you want to be, quote, successful as an artist, you got to get up and go to work, So, like I try, and I'm in a writing season. I try and write for 2 to 3 hours a day some days.
Wow. Yeah.
It's not something I started right away. Like I have to work into it, So when I first get back into it, I'll write for a half hour. The next day, maybe an hour. The next day, maybe 2 or 3. Before I know it, I'm just like in it. And I'm like, oh, crap. I got other stuff to do. I got to answer email. I got to whatever. I can't wait to get up in the morning and write again,
Right. That's so
And
cool.
those things start to build, and you do that over time. And so they're like, as a writer anyway, there are all sorts of tips and things, little tidbits, but really like, it really comes down to just doing it every single day,
Yeah.
I feel like that's where I learn the most is just by doing it every day. As a writer, I think so
that self discipline is something you'd emphasize. Yeah.
Totally. Yes.
Okay.
I don't think the thing is you got to love it enough to do it, even if you're not successful at it. Writing music is something I don't think I would have as much time to write music if I hadn't seen some success. But I feel like all day long I would be thinking about when I could sneak away and work on a song.
Right.
And if nobody was going to hear it,
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I think it's important to fall in love with what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people have different viewpoints on this. My dad's always like, you got to do what you're called to do. It doesn't matter if you love it, like it, hate it. It's like, you got to do. And I can see that side too. But also I feel like you're going to be the best at something you love enough. I guess you're going to be the best at what you're willing to sacrifice for. And you're only going to sacrifice the most for the things that you love.
True.
So learning how to love what's good. I mean, I think that's just a Christian principle in general. Like, how do I learn how to love what's good? I remember hating exercise. And I got this point in my life where like, all right, I've got a stressful life. I got 3 kids and I'm married. I got a couple of businesses and touring band. And I'm trying to write a song, trying to make an album. All these people want to hear like how God feels. And it's my job to like, I'm like the one that's got to like tell them like how God feels, but like I don't know what God's thinking right now. So like, why am I? You feeling all this pressure.
Yeah.
I realized like I'm under a massive emotional strain, right?
Right.
So I started talking to some people. I got some help, and a big part of it was they're like, man, you need to. Things like exercise are really good for your brain. Like, I think for a minute I was on some medication, nothing major, but medication kind of weirded me out. I was like, there's got to be a better way. I'm not against medication, but
Yeah.
but the doctor was like, why don't you try exercising and eating right first? And it's so funny how little things like that make a difference. It seems so wrong that something so simple would have such a profound impact. Something so non-spiritual is made me a much more spiritual person. But at first I hated it, but I actually kind of fell in love with exercise. I was like, I'm going to be addicted to something. I'm going to learn how to get addicted to exercise.
Right.
You look at me now, I'm not like I'm not rich. I'm about 20 pounds up at this point between my vacation this summer and tour this fall and Christmas. I got to get back to it. But I learned something. I was like, wow, it's not hard to exercise when you love it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't love exercise, but you can learn. And I was like, so to me, most of living the good life is learning how to love what's good,
Good.
And I mean, that's I love the C.S. Lewis, The Great Divorce. Have you read that book?
I have. Yeah, it's brilliant.
And in the book, heaven and in the book, it's an allegory, but in the book, heaven and hell are the same place.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's hell if you haven't learned how to love what's good, because you hate the goodness is painful to you. And if you love what's good, it's challenging, but it's the most beautiful place, Yeah. And I feel like there's some real truth in that. I mean, you got to be honest. I'm not a fan of denial, but at the same time, that's for me, learning how to love what's good is a key to living the good life on any level. You learn how to love what you do, the music, love what you do with your family. Even, I'm writing this kids book right now. It's called I Thought About You. And the whole concept is that I've had all these adventures. I love touring, right?
Yeah.
Run into people who don't love touring, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man, because I really do. I love it. I love the conquering.
You love your Sprinter, don't you?
Oh, man. I did. I had an RV for a little while. And
did you really?
Yeah, I'm selling. Who wants to buy an RV? I'm done with it. But I love the conquering spirit and experiencing the country and devouring the road. I love it, And I realized there's a sense of adventure, that I have that it calls to me. And that's honestly kind of the Wilder Love song is about that sense of adventure, the wanderlust, But I realized that excuse me, I realized that the greatest adventures actually happen at home with my family. And see, it's easy for me to see other people on the Instagrams who are out playing Madison Square Garden or Red Rocks or and I'm like, man, I really want to hit it hard again. And I'm like, let's see if I can get back out there and go do it some more. And I will at some point, but but at the same time, there's an adventure happening right here in my house. I think they're back there waiting on me to finish the dinner at some point. And it's what I've done is instead of looking at myself and oh, I'm such a terrible person because I have this wanderlust. I have this thing that wants to take me away from my community and my family. And instead, I've redirected it and I've realized, actually, no, that was given to me by God.
Yeah.
But, and even the whole idea, and I even get tired of this word. And I know I get tired of hearing about sin, the word sin. I get so tired of it. But the word sin in the Bible means, it means basically an arrow that's crooked. It means to miss the mark, And so often we feel like we go to church and we're told that we're sinful. And really, it's hey, actually, no, God put that in you. Just it needs to be directed correctly,
right?
Right. So all this passion and energy is not something that I need to snuff out, but it's something that I need to direct in the right direction,
Yeah, that's
so that's probably a lot for a lot of information.
I appreciate your insight, dude. And like I said, I love the way your brain works and how you process things. And you truly are, such a excellent poet and artist that really leads the way for, I think, a lot of believers and basically showing people how to maybe blend those things that we were talking about and how to do it successfully and how to do it well. So, dude, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Dude, really appreciate it. I hope you have a great time. And blessings upon you this year as you endeavor and launch out in more adventure. So love you, bro.
Dude, thank you so much, man.
Okay.
So good.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, man.
All right. See you.